For 5 centuries, one book has haunted rulers, terrified the church, and been whispered about in the halls of power. Banned from pulpits, burned in public squares, yet secretly studied by kings, generals, and CEOs. This is not a book about kindness. It is not a book about morality. It is something far more dangerous. A manual for victory. The Prince doesn't flatter human nature. It exposes it. It doesn't promise justice. It promises survival. Its pages have shaped wars, toppled kingdoms, and built empires, from Renaissance courts to Silicon Valley boardrooms. By the end of this video, you won't just know why it was called the Devil's Handbook. You'll understand why its lessons still seduce anyone who dares to lead. The question is not whether the Prince is dangerous, but whether you are ready to use it. To understand the Prince, you first need to know the man who wrote it, Niccolo Machiavelli. Born in 1469 in Florence, Italy, he grew up in a city that was both a jewel of the Renaissance and a battlefield of politics. Florence was surrounded by powerful rivals, torn by internal factions, and constantly at risk of invasion. It was a world where one wrong move could cost you your throne, your freedom, or your life. Machiavelli rose to prominence as a diplomat and civil servant. For over a decade, he negotiated with kings, popes, and mercenary generals. He witnessed firsthand the brutal chess game of Italian politics. He saw alliances made in the morning and broken by nightfall. He saw mercy repaid with betrayal and weakness punished with destruction. And through it all, he studied the moves of those who managed not just to gain power, but to keep it. But Machiavelli's fortunes turned. When the powerful Medici family regained control of Florence, Machiavelli was accused of conspiracy. He was arrested, tortured, and exiled. Stripped of his position, he retreated to his farm outside the city. It was there, in disgrace and desperation, that he wrote The Prince. He dedicated it to the very rulers who had cast him aside, hoping his insights would restore him to favor. What emerged was not a book about morality or ideals. It was a book about reality. About the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. The Prince is a manual for survival in a dangerous world, distilled from blood, betrayal, and experience. And its lessons still echo through the corridors of power today. At the heart of Machiavelli's vision is the struggle between fortune and virtù. Fortune, he said, is like a raging river, unpredictable, often destructive, and beyond human control. But virtù, a ruler's boldness, skill, and willpower, can shape fortune, building dikes and channels to master its force. Weak rulers drift helplessly with the current, but strong rulers bend it to their advantage. Machiavelli's greatest example was Cesare Borgia, the Duke of Valentinois. Borgia was ruthless, ambitious, and charismatic. With the backing of his powerful father, Pope Alexander VI, he carved out a state in central Italy through a mix of cunning diplomacy and calculated violence. He placed trusted men in power, eliminated rivals, and used fear to impose order. When one of his governors grew hated for excessive cruelty, Borgia staged a public execution, making himself appear merciful while strengthening his grip. For Machiavelli, Borgia embodied the perfect balance of ferocity and intelligence. But Machiavelli also warned that even the boldest ruler must adapt. Fortune may favor the daring, but it punishes hesitation. A leader who waits for the perfect moment often misses it entirely. The rise to power requires decisive action, even when risks are high. Opportunities rarely knock twice, and when they do, they vanish as quickly as they appear. A prince must be ready to strike before rivals even sense the opening. To delay is to surrender power to someone else's ambition. The lesson is clear: power doesn't come to those who dream. It comes to those who act. Fortune may open the door, but only Virtù can walk through it. And once you seize power, the real challenge begins: how to keep it. That leads us to one of the most famous dilemmas in all of political thought. Is it better for a ruler to be loved or to be feared? Few questions in leadership are as timeless or as controversial as Machiavelli's. Is it better to be loved or to be feared? His answer was blunt. If you cannot be both, it is far safer to be feared. Why? Because love is voluntary, fragile, and conditional. People may love a leader today and abandon them tomorrow, swayed by envy or self-interest. Fear, however, is reliable. It creates boundaries people dare not cross. Fear makes betrayal costly. Fear anchors authority when loyalty wavers. But here's the nuance. Machiavelli did not celebrate cruelty for its own sake. He warned that fear must never slide into hatred. A hated ruler is doomed. Once hatred sets in, conspiracies multiply, rebellion brews, and even the most powerful prince falls. The key is balance, to command respect through firmness, but not to provoke vengeance through savagery. Machiavelli illustrated this with real-world examples. Cesare Borgia was feared, yet admired for his decisiveness. His power endured as long as he balanced severity with strategy. On the other hand, rulers who became despised, like tyrants who taxed excessively, humiliated their people, or allowed unchecked cruelty, eventually faced violent downfalls. Fear without hatred is power. Fear with hatred is suicide. Modern parallels are easy to see. Dictators who lean too far into terror collapse in spectacular revolutions. Business leaders who rule through intimidation burn out their teams and lose loyalty. But leaders who set firm standards, enforce discipline, and maintain respect, while avoiding outright cruelty, often achieve both stability and results. Machiavelli's lesson is not about embracing evil. It's about recognizing a difficult truth. Human loyalty is fickle, but human caution is consistent. A ruler who relies only on love rules on shifting sands. A ruler who inspires fear without cruelty builds a fortress that lasts. So when faced with the dilemma of fear versus love, Machiavelli's answer remains as unsettling as it is practical. In the contest for power, fear is the safer bet. The challenge is wielding it without crossing into hatred. Machiavelli understood something modern politicians, CEOs, and influencers still practice. Appearances matter more than reality. A ruler does not need to be truly merciful, faithful, or just, but he must appear to be. Image is power, and illusion is often stronger than truth. In The Prince, Machiavelli explains that people judge more with their eyes than with their hands. They see how a leader presents himself, not the hidden motives behind the curtain. A ruler who projects virtue gains trust, even if his decisions are ruthless. To survive, leaders must master the art of performance. Symbols, ceremonies, religious devotion, even myths. All of these cloak harsh realities with comforting appearances. A prince may break promises when necessary, but he must always appear honorable while doing so. Machiavelli points to examples like Pope Alexander VI, who deceived with ease, swearing oaths he never intended to keep. Yet his ability to appear devout and trustworthy allowed him to strengthen his family's power. In politics, perception was not just a tool. It was the battlefield itself. This lesson echoes today. Modern leaders stage photo ops, craft slogans, and build personal brands. Companies polish public images even while making hard, unpopular choices behind closed doors. Optics guide public faith far more than reality. The show, as Machiavelli predicted, becomes the truth people believe. But illusion alone is not enough. A leader who only pretends, without the strength to enforce authority, risks collapse. Appearances can win hearts temporarily, but only decisive action keeps power secure. That's why Machiavelli stressed that rulers must combine image with substance, show virtue, but wield ruthlessness when survival demands it. Ultimately, Machiavelli's insight is unsettling but undeniable. Humans are guided more by stories, symbols, and appearances than by facts. Leaders who understand this control not just armies, but imaginations. And in politics, as in business, media, or culture, controlling imagination is the highest form of power. Next, we'll explore how Machiavelli addressed the darker tools of leadership, cruelty, advisors, and the raw strength that can make or break a ruler. Machiavelli's lesson on cruelty isn't about medieval bloodshed. It's about how leaders today handle tough decisions. He argued that when hard actions are necessary, they should be decisive, clear, and limited. Dragging out painful measures only deepens resentment. In practice, this might look like a CEO making layoffs all at once, rather than prolonging uncertainty for months. One firm strike, then a period of rebuilding, is more humane and more effective than constant cuts. The same principle applies to discipline. A manager who lets problems linger creates chaos. One who addresses them firmly and early restores stability. Cruelty, well used in the modern sense, means having the courage to make unpopular but necessary choices and then moving forward to heal and grow. Machiavelli also warned about reliance on mercenaries. In his time, it meant hired soldiers. Today, it might mean overdependence on contractors, external consultants, or temporary alliances. Outsiders can be useful, but if they hold the core of your operation, you are vulnerable. Strong leaders build teams that are loyal, skilled, and aligned with their mission. Strength comes from investing in your own people, not renting it from others. And then there are advisors. Machiavelli stressed that a leader must listen to counsel, but never surrender final judgment. Too many voices cause paralysis, while blind trust in flattery leads to disaster. The modern version, Leaders who surround themselves only with yes men lose perspective, while those who invite honesty but retain authority make sharper decisions. In today's world, whether running a business, leading a movement, or managing a team, the balance remains the same. Act decisively when tough measures are required, build strength from within, and seek counsel without surrendering control. These are not lessons about cruelty in the old sense. They are about clarity, resilience, and independence. A leader who embodies these principles earns respect, maintains order, and builds an organization strong enough to endure setbacks and shifts in fortune. No matter how powerful a ruler may seem, fortune always has the final word. Machiavelli compared fortune to a raging river, calm at times, but when it floods, it sweeps away trees, bridges, and even entire cities. Weak rulers, unprepared for change, are destroyed when the current shifts. Strong rulers, however, are those who build dams and channels long before the waters rise. In other words, fortune cannot be controlled, but it can be prepared for. For Machiavelli, adaptability was the highest form of strength. A prince who clings to old methods when the world changes will eventually collapse. The strategies that once brought success may later bring ruin if applied blindly. True rulers understand that survival depends on flexibility, the ability to act boldly when times demand boldness, and cautiously when caution is the wiser path. History offers endless proof of this lesson. States that failed to modernize their armies or economies fell to those who adapted. Monarchs who refused to adjust their rule to new political realities were overthrown. Even in modern times, companies that ignore changing markets or technologies are swept aside by competitors who embrace innovation. Fortune rewards those who evolve. Machiavelli also observed that fortune tends to favor the bold, but boldness without calculation leads to recklessness. To him, the most successful rulers were those who struck decisively when opportunity appeared, but who also recognized when to change course as the winds shifted. This balance between daring and adaptability defined what he called true virtue. The lesson here is sobering. No reign, no empire, no power is permanent. Fortune always turns, and only those who anticipate its floods survive the storm. A prince who prepares for change, who adapts with the times rather than resisting them, can outlast the chaos. The ones who fail to do so are swept into the forgotten pages of history. Machiavelli never lived to see his book embraced. During his lifetime, the prince was dismissed, condemned, even branded heretical. Yet over the centuries, it became one of the most influential works on politics ever written. His name itself turned into an adjective, Machiavellian, often used as a synonym for manipulation or ruthless cunning. But the truth is more complex. Machiavelli wasn't advocating evil for its own sake. He was describing power as it actually operates, stripped of illusions. He believed stability, strength, and survival mattered more than lofty ideals that collapsed under pressure. In his eyes, a leader who pretended the world was gentle doomed their people. A leader who understood its harshness could protect them. Today, the prince still resonates because it captures something timeless about human nature. Whether in politics, business, or personal life, power dynamics shape every relationship. We still debate the same questions he raised. Should leaders aim to be loved or feared? Should appearances outweigh reality? Should morality ever give way to necessity? The legacy of the prince is not a call to cruelty, but a call to clarity. It reminds us that leadership is not easy, and that power, once taken, demands vigilance. 500 years later, Machiavelli's challenge still stands. If the crown were placed in your hands, would you choose morality or power? If you found this journey through the prince eye-opening, imagine how much more there is to uncover about the hidden rules of power. Don't just stop here. Power is a language, and Machiavelli only wrote the first chapter. Subscribe for more deep dives into the timeless strategies of rulers, thinkers, and masterminds who shaped history. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Would you rather be loved or feared? And if this video gave you a new perspective, share it, because knowledge, like power, is meant to spread.